Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who haven't met me or are watching this replay on YouTube, my name is Melissa Corkum, and I am a parent coach bringing you parenting advice that works so that you can have less frustration and more fun with your child. So I blog at thecorkboardonline.com and connect with parents on Facebook in a private group called Essentially Connected, where you may be watching right now. Hey, Jerry Lee. So today we're going to be talking about nagging, right? So drop a GIF in the comments for how you feel about having to nag your kids all day long. So before I jump into my 5 top strategies for how to avoid nagging, I want to invite you to come to an upcoming 3-day live training that I'll be doing called 3 Secrets Every Parent of a Child with ADHD Needs to Know. It starts on Tuesday, June 6th, Tuesday, June 4th, which will be here before we know it. I'll be going live at 10 a.m. every day. The replays will be available for a limited time because I know replays are really important because our kids sometimes make life really unpredictable. We can't always show up when we would like to. You can register for that free training at adhdparentingsecrets.com, which I'll also drop into the description of the video after I'm finished here. Okay, so let's talk about nagging. No one likes it. We don't like to nag our kids, and our kids certainly don't like to be nagged, right? You probably don't like to be nagged about the things that you need to do. Your husband probably doesn't like to be nagged about his honey-do list, or your spouse doesn't like to be nagged about, picking up laundry or whatever the thing is. We just don't like to be nagged. It doesn't feel good. So let's talk about things that we can do to not have to nag our kids so much. This is going to help us feel better about our parenting. It's going to help our kids not be so irritated at us all the time because we're nagging. It's just going to help be, again, less frustration, more fun, right? That's what we're all about here. So I'm going to talk to you about 5 different strategies that you can be using in your home with your kids to reduce nagging. The first one is set really clear expectations. So everyone should know what the expectations are. Sometimes people like to call these rules, but I would say make your expectations as simple as possible. We want to set clear expectations for things like chores, right? Our kids don't do very well when all of a sudden they feel like we've sprung something on them. Like, you're walking by, they're playing a video game, whatever, and you're like, hey, Johnny, it's time to fold your laundry. And they're like, what? Oh, I don't know, right? They don't transition really well. For things like chores, it's best if we're in a routine and we have a rhythm so that they can know what to expect and when. And this rhythm and routine is really important because our kids struggle with executive functioning. Sometimes they struggle with emotional regulation, and they need things in their lives that are rhythmic and repetitive and routine. Their bodies rely on that to help regulate, to all those R's, right? The more routine, the more rhythm, the more repetition that we introduce into our kids' lives equals the more regulation, right? And everyone needs more regulation with their kids. Be consistent, right? If you set an expectation, make sure that you stick with it, which also means that we need to think about the expectations that we're setting and be really clear that we want to stick with them because we need to be consistent for the sake of our kids. Number 2 is reduce verbal cueing. Especially, I like to talk about this when we're talking about things that our kids do that are kind of annoying. How many of you have kids who are tappers or hummers or spinners? Maybe they're doing a repetitive rhythmic activity on their own that's trying to regulate them, but it's annoying the crap out of you, right? So I get it. We have a tapper and a hummer in our house. So something that has really helped us is reducing the verbal cueing for those repetitive, annoying, impulsive behaviors in an effort to help our kids attend to their own body and think about their own decisions. So this is also something that's great for helping to reduce impulsivity. And what it looks like is recognizing that your child probably knows that you're annoyed by his tapping or chewing or whatever it is that he's doing. But he's really not paying attention, or he may be doing it out of like a sensory need or something like that. So what we do for our kids who struggle with this is we started changing our verbal cueing to hey Johnny, stop tapping, to hey Johnny, why might I be calling your name right now? Right? And so that causes our children to stop and think. And then they're like, oh, was I tapping? Yes, you were, right? So, but it's helping them train their brain to be attentive to their own body. Once you start develop that pattern and you're developing that sense of attention in their body, you can reduce that verbal cueing to be like, hey, Johnny. And they'll be like, hey, what? And you just kind of stare them down, right? And they're like, oh, was I tapping again? Right? So you're training them to think of that voice in their head that's like, why am I calling your name right now? But you're taking away that part. And then you can even get to the point where maybe you tap or you have a sign or some kind of body cue, where you could not even use your voice necessarily. You maybe snap up here, get their attention so they can give you eye contact. And then, oh, wait, when mom does that, I need to do a body scan and find out if my body's doing something it's not supposed to be doing right now. Again, that works for a lot of impulsive, repetitive, annoying behaviors. So reduce that verbal cueing, which is also increasing your child's attention to his own body. Number 3 is use visuals for everything. So those clear expectations we talked about, number 1, make it visual. Our kids struggle with abstract things. A lot of them have verbal processing disorder, or they have slower verbal processing, which means you're talking to them and, we know what we're saying and it's coming out of our mouths 10 miles a minute. But they're only hearing every third word, or they're hearing it, but it takes them all this time to process it. So we need to make things as clear as possible using verbal things. So that might be posting a visual schedule for the day, posting a visual chore schedule for the week, just having whatever your rules, household rules or expectations are posted. Again, think broad, simple safety rules. Things like no hurts, stick together, have fun, right? That pretty much covers a lot of different things that could fall under that, but things that we can kind of recite and chant quickly to our kids. But whatever your expectations are, whatever plan you set up, whatever schedule you have going on, find a way to make it visual. There are great resources for creating visual schedules out there. Countdowns using paper chains to something that they're looking forward to, so you don't have to answer a bajillion questions about, is it time to go to camp yet? All those things. Number 4, be okay with the natural consequences. So for instance, if your expectation is that your child needs to do whatever chores they are, and they should be verbally listed somewhere where everyone can see them before he has screen time for the day, then let that be the gatekeeper, right? You don't have to bug your child to empty the dishwasher a bajillion times, right? Maybe you wish that it was going to be done earlier in the day, but if you have set the expectation that there's no time, right? They just have to do it before they have a privilege, then wait for them to ask for the privilege, and then be like, hey, I would love to give you your Xbox time or PlayStation time or whatever it is. But remember, and then point to the visual, this is how it works in our house, right? You need to make sure that the dishwasher's done, and then I'd love to give you that screen time. Maybe you wish that your child did his chores in the morning before he went off to school, but obviously you can't say you can't go to school until your chores are done, right? That doesn't really work. So sometimes we need to set up some other things, but then maybe you don't really want your child to learn the hard way, but sometimes that's the best way in those consequences to do that. And then the key to that is, right, when they're upset about not having whatever privilege it is that's gatekeeping to whatever the expectation is that we keep our own cool, right? And maybe even empathize with them. Yeah, I hate doing chores too, buddy. But this has to get done. I would also say if your child is kind of prone to power struggles, that you don't give him or her chores that can stop the rest of the household from running, like emptying the dishwasher. You need that to happen. Maybe sweeping the kitchen floor would be something better, because if that doesn't happen, the household won't stop running. But I don't know about you, but in my house, I need my dishwasher emptied because we have a lot of family living there and a lot of dishes, and I really need that done. So also be careful about where you pick your control battles. The last thing that has worked really well for us in terms of nagging is doing a nightly glow grow. So this is a time at night before bed that I sit around with my kids. We don't do it as often as we should anymore. The kids are starting to get older. But when we had a more solid bedtime routine, we would do this glow grow thing where I would go around and chat with everyone about something that I'd seen during the day that they did really well, and then suggest one thing that they work on, right? And so what this did was allow me to get through the day without nagging them about all the little things that I wanted them to change, saying please and thank you, picking up their clothes, treating their sister or brother with respect, or I don't know, all different kinds of things, right, that we nag our kids about all day long, all day long, all day long. I would kind of make mental notes as I would watch my kids and get to the end of the day and think, what is the one thing I really would like? What would be the most impactful thing for them if they could work on it in our family? And that gave us an opportunity, one, for them to have a break, because a lot of our kids struggle with a lot of things, right? If we could be reminding them all day long about a ton of different things. But it helped me think about what was the most important thing for them to be working on. And then they only had to hear, those types of things one time from me. Of course, safety things and all of those things, those need to be addressed right away. But some of the little things don't need to be addressed right in the moment. And so having this time in the evening where I could first praise my kids for something that they did really well that day, that would prime them to be able to receive a suggestion for something that they could work on. And it also, because it was repetitive and rhythmic, they knew to expect me to suggest something at the end of the night. So they kind of were mentally prepared for criticism, which is hard for our kids because they have a lot of shame around their behaviors, around the places that they struggle. And so we want to be able to help them, help mold and shape them without shaming them more, right? So, and sometimes it was almost a game, right? They would try to guess what the glow was going to be, right? They'd be like, I know, Mom, I need to, whatever the thing was. So that worked really well and really helped with our relationship. So anyway, those are my top 5 ways to stop nagging your kids. Set clear expectations, reduce verbal cueing, use lots of visuals, be okay with the natural consequences of whatever those clear expectations were that you set up. And 5, try a nightly glow grow and save all the other and just put away the nagging and focus on those couple things that are super, super important for your child to work on. So I hope that was helpful. Go ahead and leave comments and questions in the comments, and I will see you around this week, friends.